Are you building a budget project and you're thinking about using the Dupli-Color primer surfacer as your primer for that project? Let me give you some tips on how to get the best results out of this primer. Let's go. What it do, kings and queens? It's your boy, the UP King, the People's Champ, and we back with another video. And in today's video, we talking about the Dupli-Color primer surfacer, a high build primer, which is really a lacquer primer. And I'm gonna give you some of my tips on using this primer so that you can get the best results. All right, first off, before we get into the mixing, let's talk a little bit about the instructions. So, for the mixing, it says to mix 1 part primer and 1 part of their specialty reducer, which is probably just a lacquer thinner reducer that's for this primer to reduce it. So it's 1 part of that along with the primer surfacer. Then it's telling you to use 2 to 3 medium wet coats, spraying at 25 to 30 PSI with an HVLP gun. And if you got a conventional gun, it's saying 30 to 40 pounds. So it's a high build primer and it's sandable. And you have a dry time of like 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes of it drying, you're able to sand it, and you want to sand it, or at least start off sanding it at 320. So 320 grit, and then you can move your way up, do all your blocking, find your low spots. If you have any, fix those, prime again, repeat the process, and all that good stuff. So now that I told you what the directions is telling you, I'm gonna give you my version on how I mix this primer surfacer to get even better results. Okay, in my experience with using this primer surfacer, it's best to mix it at 2 to 1 and not 1 to 1 if you want it to be a high build primer. If you want to use this at best as a sealer, then 1 to 1 is going to be better for you as a sealer. 2 to 1 is going to be better for you as a high build primer. Then you can sand it and then go through the process of blocking out your areas, reprime it again at 2 to 1, high build it again, then block it out for your final block before paint. You can use a 1 to 1 mixture and use that as your seal. So you can seal it and then you can start your paint process. So let me show you why I say to mix this at 2 to 1 as a high build primer, then 1 to 1 as a sealer, even though it recommends that you do this 1 to 1. First one is going to be 2 to 1. Then this one here is going to be 1 to 1. Mix up the 1 to 1. Take another stick, we mix up the 2 to 1. So now that we got our primer mixed up, got it on the stick and it's drying a little bit, now I can show you why I mix this at 2 to 1 and not 1 to 1. As you can see on the stick, you can still see the lines of the wood on the stick. So it's still kind of thin and it's not covering the stick. Now this is the 1-to-1 mixture. But after we look at the 2-to-1 mixture, it's harder to see the actual wood under the primer. So when you do a 2-to-1 mixture, it's more primer than it is reducer. So it high builds a lot faster than going with the 1-to-1 that's going to take you a lot more coats and a lot more material to actually build it up. It's going to be super thin. So you want it to be a little bit thicker so that it'll fill your imperfections and scratches up and actually work as a high build primer. So this hood had a lot of scratches, had crow's feet throughout the hood. And it's kind of hard to tell since it's a gray primer. And I could sand it, but I'm not gonna waste your time trying to sand it and trying to show you. But this hood had heavy scratches in it from a previous paint job. So I filled it in with that 2-to-1 mixture, and then I'll be able to block it out. And that's what makes it a high build primer when you mix it 2-to-1 and not 1-to-1. If you mix it 1-to-1, it's gonna take you forever to fill those scratches in. But when you get close to it, you don't see those scratches in there anymore. All right, kings and queens. So if you're looking for a primer to use for your budget build, consider thinking about using the Dupli-Color high build primer surfacer that you might be able to find at your local auto store or O'Reilly's. And make sure that you pick up the specialty reducer that goes along with it so that you can reduce it. And then you can decide whether you want to reduce it 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. And this primer here will work out fine as a budget primer for your build. You can get this and it'll cost you roughly somewhere around $50 for the primer. I believe it's between $23 to $25 for the reducer, and that's also a gallon. So that will reduce to 2 gallons of sprayable material mixed 1-to-1. So depending on how you plan on using this, then you can get 2 gallons sprayable out of this setup. So hopefully you find this information useful, and if you think so, consider giving this video a thumbs up, and we're finna get back to it. So this your boy, the UP King, the People's Champ, and we out.
It's everything to be an underground king.